Welcome to the Go Slow to Go Fast Lifestyle Podcast. This is the space where we explore the wisdom, habits, and life experiences of extraordinary guests who remind us sometimes the most meaningful progress begins by slowing down. Together, we'll discover practical ways to reconnect with ourselves, move through life with greater purpose, cultivate calm in a busy world, and live each day with more clarity, intention, and joy. I'm Kendra Chapman, your host, and today we're sitting down with Germain, a certified functional medicine health coach and founder of Compass Health Coaching. After reversing her own Crohn's disease without relying on lifelong medication, Jen transformed one of life's greatest challenges into a calling. Today, she has helped more than 200 clients heal chronic illness, lose weight sustainably, and reclaim their health by addressing the root causes, not by simply managing symptoms. Jen is a passionate advocate for patient empowerment, holistic healing, and powerful connections between mindset and lasting transformation. And we're going to get into all of that in today's conversation. We're going to explore what true healing looks like, why our bodies often whisper before they scream, and how slowing down long enough to listen may be one of the most powerful medicines available to us now. So whether you are navigating your own health journey, supporting someone you love, or simply looking for practical ways to live with greater vitality, this conversation is for you. So take a deep breath and let's get started. Well, Coach Jen, thank you for agreeing to sit down with us on Go Slow to Go Fast, and welcome to the show.
Well, thank you so much for having me today, Kendra. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Yes. So how do you go slow these days?
So the way that I go slow, one of the things that I transitioned when I went from like my full-time job in the corporate world or, for my 9 to 5 and went into entrepreneurship is I have slow mornings. And honestly, it's one of the best things that I've ever done for myself is to slow down my mornings, that I'm not rushing around, that I'm not going from here to there. Now, there may be a day where it's a little more rushed, but honestly, slowing down my mornings and being more intentional with how I spend my mornings has really made such a difference in my overall production throughout my day, as well as just my stress levels and everything else. It has just been a game changer. I started to do it somewhat in my 9 to 5 before I moved, but it's been a game changer ever since.
Yeah, I can imagine that when you have that shift, it probably takes a minute to get used to it, but then you really start to
Yeah.
see the benefits. And then you
Yep.
say to yourself, I want to keep feeling like this.
Yeah. Yeah. It's been, when you're on somebody else's schedule, I think that was one of the biggest things to understand was when I shifted into entrepreneurship and having my own business was I make my own schedule. I don't have to ask somebody else. Like I joke about, I'm like, hey, I have to ask my boss if I can get off, if I can get off that day. But really understanding that I am my own boss and that I can create the way that my schedule, the way that I want it. And that really took some getting used to 100%. But it was one of the best things I ever did was making my mornings slow and making sure that I'm taking time for me, especially in my mornings, because it helps me to map out the rest of my day and feel like that I am coming first even when I have other things I know I have to get done that day.
Yeah. And I think as women, we so often put everybody else before ourselves. And we've heard this. It's almost like a cliche these days, but it really is important for us to put ourselves first so we
Yes.
can be the best of our,
Yep.
best version of ourselves.
It truly is. And that's what I talk to many of my clients about is one of the things is like, you can't pour from an empty cup. You have to make sure that your cup is full, that you are recharging. And it's not selfish to take time for yourself. It really is that recharge, that restoring of yourself, really creating, intention and clearing space so that you can rise to be the person that you need to be and helping other people. Because if you are burnt out, not able to function, making poor decisions, because you're going from place to place to place, you are not going to feel good about yourself, first off. And then the decisions that you make most likely are just going to keep you in that same loop over and over and over again.
Yes. I mean, I've been there myself and I can I'm one of those negative self-talkers. So I have to stop first, stop the negative self-talk. Notice that I have to, that's been kind of the biggest step for me is noticing it, stopping it, and then trying to just think something different, hopefully more positive, but just think a different thought because we can beat ourselves up so much just for not doing the thing that we think we're supposed to, or, whatever that wellness practice is that we're trying out. But for listeners and viewers out there, do you mind just taking us back to that moment where you started to think, that speed was really not the best, I guess, process for you? Like, when did you start to realize that you needed to slow down to heal?
Yeah. So, back in 2020, I got sick. And, at that time we had a lot of stress for everybody, at that time in the country and in the world really. And, I got sick. At first I thought it was food poisoning, but here I would come to learn that I had both Crohn's and ulcerative colitis. And one of the things that when I was looking at it through the functional medicine lens, once I started to see what functional medicine was, I was introduced to that through a person I was following on Instagram. She was a cancer survivor. And that's how I learned about functional medicine. And I was like, they talk a lot about like lifestyle changes, about creating better habits, creating better lifestyle habits through yourself. And they really look at different things such as your nutrition, your sleep, your stress management, and your exercise. And so when I went to my health coach in 2020, I went to one myself after I was diagnosed with Crohn's in September of 2020. And I went to her and she talked mostly about nutrition. And as I was going through my nutrition, I started to feel so much better. I lost brain fog I never knew I had. The fatigue that I had from being sick was dissipating. I was starting to feel better. The joint pain and all of the other inflammation that I had in my body was going away. I lost 20 pounds while I was sick, but they put me on the autoimmune protocol diet. And that helped I lost even more weight. I lost another 25 and I wasn't even looking to do that, but all of the inflammation was going out. My diet was so much better. And that was one of the moments that really changed for me to say, you know what, I have to slow down and pay attention to my health. I can't just go about the day to day and doing everything. I have to be more intentional. I have to take things at a slower pace because my body needs to heal. So I focused on nutrition first because that was, the area that I really need to focus on. But then I went into exercise and to understand that I needed to go slowly with that. So really starting to see that a slower approach to things really helps you to set intention and creates clarity because it helps you to sort things out. I was a sugar addict my whole life. So going from being a sugar addict to not having sugar, I haven't had refined sugar in 6 years and I don't miss it. And so to go from having it in my car everywhere, I had it for breakfast most days actually. I'd have candy. Going from that and going to be more intentional and saying, okay, what am I having for breakfast today? And again, it goes back to those slow mornings and saying, okay, what am I doing? How am I making my food? How am I meal planning? How am I prepping for everything? It helps to create intention and clarity and it creates self care so that you are putting yourself first, as you were talking about, like so many, especially women, because we are, most of us, for the majority of us, are nurturers. We take care of everybody else. But to realize that we really have to put ourselves first. It's just like when you're on an airplane and they say, hey, put the mask on before you take care of somebody else. You have to take care of yourself first. And as I was going through my healing journey, I realized that you don't go fast. You don't, chuck every single thing. You don't focus on every single thing. I had to start with nutrition first. Now I did chuck all of my sugar and I did chuck, like I went, all or nothing for that. But then I went slowly and said, okay, next is going to be exercise. And then next is going to be stress management. And then next is going to be personal care products. And then there were steps to each one of those things. I didn't try to do everything all at once because that would have been too overwhelming. And so if you go, the slower you go, the easier I think it is because you can take it on different levels. And honestly, it makes it easier to be consistent because you're taking it one step at a time. And it doesn't have to be, like I said, I chucked everything, but some people will start out slower and that's okay. If it's just saying, okay, I want to change this meal or change the way I snack, or maybe it's I can't go for a run, but I'm going to go for a walk. Starting out slow, there's nothing wrong with that because then you can create consistency. And consistency is always, always your key.
Yes, there's so many things that I want to unpack with you on what you just shared because I too had autoimmune flare up where I had to go on that protocol diet. And I can remember thinking, what am I going to eat besides vegetables? Like, I can't have this and that, like all the starches that I relied on so heavily. I always had to have potatoes or rice. All
Yep.
of that was out. Then I had
Yeah.
to think about, refined sugar next because yeah, it's hard not to have the sweets, especially if you have little ones in the
Yeah.
house, because you
Yep.
think about all the little snacks that they get. So then it's like, you've got to think about your lifestyle completely
Yep.
differently. And
Yep.
if you're somebody who, if it's going to be in the house, are you going to be able to not eat it?
Hmm.
Or are you going to be like you, where you just like, I'm just going to get rid of it all. So it's not even a temptation.
Yep. Yep. And it's funny because my husband doesn't eat like me at all. Like he's, very different. And to be truthful, like I said, I don't miss sugar anymore. It is not even a temptation. Even if it's like if I had a thing of Skittles sitting right in front of me or Pez, and Pez was my favorite, I would have Pez all the time. If that sits in front of me, it's not even a temptation. Because for me at least, I remember and I'm sure you do with your autoimmune issues as well, you go through a lot of that by yourself and because nobody else has it. And those moments you are by yourself. And it's like, I remember all of that. I remember the pain. I remember, how I felt, the fatigue, feeling exhausted, not being, I'd take a shower and I'd have to go lay on my bed to get up the strength to get dressed. And so when you have those moments and you live that, and I'm sure other people with autoimmune can to attest to it as well, you don't want to go back to something that's going to create the same issue. And for me, the sugar and the gluten and stuff like that, I knew those were part of the things for me. And I was like, you know what? No, it's not something that I want to return to because I know where it led me and I don't want to go back to that. And so for me, it was very easy because people ask me all the time, how did you give it up cold turkey? And I was like, I threw it out and I got rid of the stuff in my pantry that had sugar in it and stuff. If it was open, it was thrown. If it wasn't, I would give it to a food pantry and it was gone. And it's just not something that I keep in my house anymore is refined sugar. And if my husband has it, he has it stashed somewhere where I don't see it.
Yeah. Yeah.
But he eats other things, but honestly, those things aren't even tempting to me because I wake up and
Hmm.
feel amazing every day, so why would I ever wanna mess with that feeling ever again?
Yes. Yeah. And I think, there's science behind this. There's some
Mhm,
psychology as well, where
mhm,
we have to think, like, I think it's like what, 21 days where you
mhm,
can really break
typically.
that habit where you're craving whatever it is that you've had in your diet that you need to
Yeah.
let go. And so sugar is something that I've started and then I've started again trying to
Mhm,
get all the sugars out. I think the things for me are dairy
mhm,
and starches, and I really have
mhm.
to think about pastas, the type
Yeah.
of pasta. If I'm gonna do
Mhm.
pasta, I have to really think about that, and cheese and and cream, and so I've come up with ways to supplement with coconut milk and, different things like, a veggie pasta that you can
Mhm.
bring in that's, the noodles that are made out
Yeah.
of zucchini. I mean, there are
Yep.
ways that you can work around it. But, for those of us that are really busy and don't have the time to do the research on the foods and cook the foods that are really good for you, what would be your advice to them listening, like thinking like there are ways that you can work it in?
There are. And I think that's where that comes into slowing down and looking at your schedule to say, okay, where can I fit in? Even if it's not, I have some clients that aren't really thrilled about cooking. It's not something that they enjoy doing. So it's like, you know what? It does, healthy eating does not have to be fancy and it doesn't have to be, let's see, is this a 4-star chef meal? Honestly, sometimes it's just taking some ground beef, you put it on a tray, you put it in the oven, make up some burger patties, put it in the oven, cook it all at once, and have that for the next few days in different meals. Or you cook up some ground beef. And then what I like to do is I'll cook up like a big thing of ground beef and then like on the different days you could put different seasonings in it. So maybe say Monday is one day you want to have like Italian. So maybe you want to put like some Italian seasoning and have it with some there are some other options out there for like pastas. So you can get like some cauliflower, it depends on what what your parameters are, but there's ones out there that have like lentils that are made with lentils that you could try.
Hmm.
There's also ones with like cassava. So again, it depends on what dietary restrictions you might have, but there are some other options out there. You can get like the zoodles and like that kind of stuff already done at the store. I would just always check what like the date and stuff just to be,
Yeah.
yeah, just to be sure.
Hmm.
But there are things that you could do like that. The nice thing about you do can get some of the like the spiralizers and stuff that don't take too long. So if you trust me, in the summertime, there's usually fresh zucchini somewhere for
Hmm.
free.
Yes.
So even like, and it doesn't usually take too long. So even something like that, 5-10 minutes, and you can even prepare that a little bit ahead of time. I just wouldn't do it too far ahead. But those are some of the things like if you can prepare it a little bit on the weekend, it'll actually save you more time in your week so that you're not having to do it when you get home and saying, oh my gosh, what am I going to make for dinner? And just, maybe say, okay, Monday nights, I'm going to do this. Tuesday nights, I want to do this. Wednesday nights are going to be like this, but making it simple on yourself. If you want to cook up a bunch of chicken, put it on a sheet pan, put it in the oven to bake for however long it takes, and then put it in a container and keep it in your fridge. And then you can cut it up on for salads, or you can cut it up and make some different dishes with it. But all you have to redo or do there is then reheat it. It's not like you have to create everything from scratch all at once. So even like those little tricks can be very helpful, especially on those days when if you have kids out at practice and you're trying to juggle between this and that, taking that time on a Sunday just for like maybe 10-15 minutes, depending on what you're cooking, put it in the oven or even a crock pot. Something along those lines can save you so much time, and then you don't have to hopefully juggle as much.
Yes, I think about 2 years, maybe that was probably more than that, maybe like 3 or 4 years ago, we got an Instapot,
Oh,
and
mhm.
that I have used that quite a bit, and
Yeah.
it can be a slow cooker, it can be
Mhm.
a quick, Instapot cooker, it can be a yogurt maker.
Yep.
They sell them where they're very versatile, so one appliance can replace multiple, which is
Mhm.
nice. And, you know, I think the trick is less liquid, the better for
Yeah.
your meats. If
Yeah.
you want that real umami flavor, but not have to worry about it being all dried out. So, yeah, there, trial and error.
Yeah.
I've learned to do a lot of meal prep on Sundays. And if I can get the boys to eat what I eat, it's definitely easier. But I also have my husband is a picky eater and he doesn't eat anything that's green. So, you just
Same as
have
my
to,
husband, except for
yeah,
broccoli for mine.
right? Yeah, mine's
Yeah.
asparagus. He'll do asparagus,
Okay.
but that's it. Yeah, so not everybody in the family necessarily or in your household is going to want to eat what you eat, and that's okay. That like you said, sometimes it's going to be a lonely road until you kind of get your routines and structures down. But I'm thinking food was definitely a heavy lift for me at the beginning, and then I started kind of figuring out what worked. And then, you build in some new recipes along the way once you kind of get your basics down. And then you start to feel better and you realize, oh,
Yeah.
I can actually lose a little weight, feel
Mhm.
better. Then you got to figure out exercise. So,
Mhm.
how important it is for those women out there listening and men in their middle years. What do we need to be thinking about as far as exercise and if we're doing any GLP-1s for late weight loss or some protocol where we lose a lot of weight in a fast amount of time? What do we need to be thinking about as we age gracefully?
Yeah, so one of the things I think, especially for anybody, especially women in midlife, but you can also talk about for men as well, you want to make sure that you're getting some good cardiovascular throughout your week, but you want to be doing strength training, whether that's with resistance bands, whether it's with machines at the gym or free weights, or maybe that you're doing I don't I have some people that don't like the gym. So it's like, okay, so what you want to go out and like garden or do things around where you're lifting, just you want to be careful of the way that you're doing things. But you want to try to get about on the cardiovascular side, about 150 minutes is what is recommended for cardiovascular health. It doesn't mean that you have to go for runs. It means maybe it's just some leisurely walks. Maybe it is just working in the garden, getting that movement in. It's not always what we think it is. We think we have to have a structured exercise plan, but that's not always the case. If you look at some of the places that have the longest living human beings, they're not there in the gym. They're out working in a garden. They're getting their hands dirty. They're out taking walks. They're going up hills. They're doing things outside. Getting into nature is a beautiful way to help your health. And if you're able to do the walks outside, even better, you're getting some great sunlight. But when you're also looking at strength training, the gym is great because you can do the weights, whether that's machine or free weight. You just always want to be careful of the way that you're doing things. So if you have access to a personal trainer or at least somebody that can show you how to use things properly so that you're not having an issue with injuries. But that strength training does measurable things for you. It helps you with your metabolic health, which is about 93% of Americans are metabolically unhealthy. And anytime I try to, tell people, anytime I give a statistic, you always have to remember there's a human being behind every percentage. There are people behind that, and you have to realize that there are things that we can do in our health that can get us to that number starts to go down. And when there's 93% of us that are metabolically unhealthy, metabolism is more than just weight loss. It configures into so many different things. It helps with hormones. It helps with our sleep cycles. It helps with so many different facets. And that's why taking exercise and saying, okay, this is going to help me in different ways. It's not just for weight loss. It's going to help me regulate my hormones. It's going to help me to, with my metabolism. It's going to help with different functions. It's going to help with creating anti-inflammatory myokines when I'm doing muscle, when my muscles are moving and everything else. It's going to put out all kinds of brain-derived neurotropic factor or BDNF for my brain. So it's going to be great for my brain health. So there's so many different things that exercise does besides just, so many times we talk about losing weight, but there's so many things that it does for our body. Our gut microbes love that. They love it when we exercise. So that helps with immune function, helps with our overall mood. It helps with so many different facets. So trying to get in, if it's just walking 150 minutes, then that's great. It doesn't have to be sprints. It doesn't have to be marathons. It could be bike rides. You want to make sure it's something that you enjoy doing. So it's consistent and sustainable for you because we're looking at longevity, not just like the summer body or I have a wedding coming up and I'm going to lose 10 pounds. This is really thinking about, hey, when I hit my retirement age, I want to do the things that I want to do. And I don't want my health, I don't want that to be a count against me. I want to be able to do, go places and do whatever I want to do in my retirement. And then typically for strength training, you want to do 2 to 3 times a week, depending on, what your goal is. But, 3 times is great. You don't want to overtrain because there is such a thing as doing that too. So you just want to be mindful of it. But usually about like 30 to 45 minutes in the gym, depending on what you're doing. You don't have to spend hours in there. I don't spend hours in the gym when I go. I get in, get her done, and then I'm out.
Yeah. I mean, I think thinking about 150 minutes a day, I'm not doing that, but I am outside in the garden, probably 30 minutes
Hmm. Hmm.
pruning or picking,
Yeah.
different, vegetables that are ripe or clearing out the stuff that needs to go. And then I'm playing cornhole with the kids, maybe
Yeah.
once, either in the morning or in the evening, going for a walk with the dogs. So it does add up. It
Yep.
doesn't have
It
to be all
does.
at once, right? It can
Correct.
be
Yep.
broken up throughout your day.
Yep. Yeah. And you're looking like if you break it down between 7 days, it's about 20 minutes a day, give or
Okay.
take. So it's about 20 to 25 minutes. And yes, there are some people that say, oh, it has to. No, something is better than nothing. So
Hmm.
if you are out in the garden moving around, you're playing with the kids, not only are you getting the great benefits of moving around with that, but then you get the social connection as well, which is, a Harvard study, one of the longest Harvard studies that they've had is social connection is what leads to the best health in our lives is having the happiness that we get from the relationships that we have. So all of these things are important in our overall health. So having that too, whether it's like maybe playing basketball with the kiddos or playing a little bit of soccer or, just going for a walk and walks with the puppies and stuff.
Hmm.
Again, it doesn't have to be strenuous. It is good to get a sweat because that helps the detox and everything else, but you want to get that heart rate up a little bit, but at least it's not sitting and being sedentary because that
Hmm.
does a lot of damage to our body in different ways. So even just going out and taking a small walk in this, like I said, nature is a wonderful thing. So getting that out there, or if it's on a treadmill, that's good too. It's at least some movement.
Yes. Okay. So that's a good reminder.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
then, anybody who is out there listening who is either thinking about or has used a GLP-1 in
Hmm.
some form or fashion in their regiment in the last couple of years. Maybe they're not on it anymore, or they're getting ready to start, or they're thinking about it. It's a fairly new drug that's come
Hmm.
on the scene, and we don't know a lot about it, but research is starting to show there's, pros and cons like everything that comes out on the market as far as
Sure.
drugs are concerned. Is there any, guidance that you would want to give listeners and viewers out there?
Yeah. So if you are put on a GLP-1 by your physician, I would definitely say you have to switch your nutrition. You can't just keep eating the same way that you have been because you have to focus on protein. That is 100%. You have to do that. A lot of the ways that the GLP-1 works is that it's going to slow down your appetite and stuff because of the way that the mechanism happens. And if nutrients, you want to make sure that you're getting that protein because those are the building blocks for your body. So you want to make sure that you have that muscle, you wanna make sure that you're exercising and strength training because that is non-negotiable. That's what I've had clients that their doctors have put them on that and said, "Well, these are at least 2 things you have to do. Protein heavy or at least protein focused." I don't wanna say heavy, but protein focused appropriate to your, goal weight, and then you have to strength train because you wanna make sure that there is no muscle loss because that muscle is actually gonna help you to burn the fat. And you wanna make sure that you're not losing the muscle mass at all. And there's been some conflicting studies out there. I saw one the other week that said that it wasn't doing, it just was taking away some of the water. It wasn't taking away some of the muscle mass. But I've actually seen with my own clients, I have a scanner and stuff that I use with my clients, and I've seen the muscle mass decrease in some of them. And that's where I've said, you've gotta get into the gym and you've gotta lift those weights because you don't want to lose that muscle mass. That is your key to metabolic health. And if that goes and you come off of that GLP-1, it's going to come, all the fat that you lost will come back and usually come back with more. And if that muscle is not there, you can't burn it. You won't be able to burn it. So the non-negotiables are at least protein focused. You have to make sure you're getting enough protein for your goal weight and then making sure that you're exercising. And I would include, besides strength training, definitely, but also making sure you're getting cardiovascular in there too, because we want to make sure that that cardiovascular system is working well. But those would be like the top three for me if you're talking about GLP ones.
Yeah, and I'm just thinking about sustainability. Anybody out there who has either been on the diet protocols that we've mentioned
Hmm.
or something similar because they needed to change their diet, or they're starting a new exercise program, or they're thinking about a GLP-1, or they're on one now, or they have been. Those are big changes in our lifestyle that we need to be thinking about and not just go cold turkey and
Hmm.
not make a change,
Yeah.
in other
Yeah.
places.
Yeah.
So I know you've shared a little bit about, things to think about as far as diet and exercise and just overall health. But as far as like mindset, what would be those, small sustainable habits that would be helpful for listeners and viewers to think about to kind of put this all together?
So mindset is one of the biggest things in your health. When I was sitting there and when I was diagnosed, it hit me because, I had never really been diagnosed with anything like that before in my life. I was always relatively healthy. I mean, I was the sugar addict and stuff, but I was always relatively healthy. I didn't go to the doctor that much. I didn't do all these things. But then to sit there and say, yeah, you have this, and then basically be told by my rheumatologist that I'll be on medications the rest of my life. And I was like, I don't think so. And that was the mindset for me. The mindset change for me was I knew functional medicine had a different approach, a different structure, a way of looking at things. And when I sat in that office and he said, I asked him if I could change it with diet and lifestyle. And he told me no. And I said, I think I can. And that was the moment I had to change. And I made the appointment with my coach. And when I went in there and sat and she said, okay, you do these things and this will help to get you started on healing. And the thing that you have to realize is when you're in a health journey, you are going to discover who you are. You're going to discover how much you love your body, how great your body is. And you can't heal a body that you hate. You have to love your body. Even if it's not at the finished product yet, it's okay because she's in there. She is inside and you just have to create the conditions for her to come out. So it's really changing the mindset of saying for your health, okay, I'm not healthy right now, but I am going to be. I am healthy. In my mind, I'm healthy. And if I do these actions and I do these things, this is what I will create. And she will be me. And to have a vision and to have a goal for yourself and start off small, like I didn't jump to the very end because it took time. But for me, it was with that 6 weeks on the autoimmune protocol diet. All of my SED rate and my HSCRP, which are inflammatory markers, were down to normal, where before they were triple what they should have been. My anemia that I had before, that was getting pretty close to having needing a blood transfusion, was gone. Like, I didn't have to take the horrible iron pills anymore, and I didn't because my diet was doing all of it. And to realize in that mindset is you have to see a vision, you have to love who you are and who you are becoming. And I know negative self-talk, and that's one of the things I work with my clients so much on is like, you can't say those things about yourself. We have 37 trillion cells. I don't know who counted all those cells, and I think it might be increasing because I think they keep coming out with a new number. And I think I heard 54 the other day, and I'm like, I don't know who's counting these cells. But every single one of those cells listens to you, to your thoughts and how you speak about yourself. And one of the studies that I'll never forget, it's a Japanese professor. He had his students do with water, how water holds energy. And we're about 70% water. And he had his students talk lovingly and kindly to one set, and then he had them speak negatively, hatefully to another set. They froze it, they put it under an electron microscope. And the ones that were talked to kindly and lovingly looked like beautiful snowflakes in geometric shapes. The ones that were hated on, they looked awful. They had no shapes. They had, it was just chaos. And I think that's something that we can learn about ourselves. If we talk that way to ourselves and we are made up of structured water, what does that give to us? So we have to start loving who we are and talking kindly to ourselves, even at first, if you don't believe it. I have clients that I have them look in a mirror and say, I want you to look there and say, I love you in the mirror to yourself. And I've had clients say, but Jen, I don't believe it. I'm like, keep saying it. Because the more that we change the neuroplasticity in our brain, the repetition that we have, the more that it is going to wire that way. And the gratitude and being thankful for the journey that you're on of discovering who you are, and to know that you're going to be with you the rest of your life, every second of every day, and loving that person. It's one of the best feelings in the world. And understanding that it takes time to get there. It's not going to happen overnight. It didn't happen, the the diagnosis I had didn't happen overnight. It's not like I just woke up and had it. It happened over years. And so you have to be aware that it's going to take some time, but having that mindset of the goal and the vision and holding to that vision and loving who you are is one of the biggest things you can do for your health journey. Even more important than the nutrition. I'm a health coach. Even more important than the nutrition and the other stuff. You have to love who you are, because if you don't have that, you're not going to be able to stick with all of the other things to make them sustainable.
Yeah, I mean, when we say that kindness matters, it's self-kindness. We really
Yes.
have to be mindful about how we talk to ourselves and think about our body.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm. And I know I
And
say that and you're agreeing, but we all have been there. We've
oh,
all
sure.
gone to that place where we're just being so critical of our choices, and we just have to stop. Stop
Yeah.
that. Just pause. Stop, drop,
Hmm.
and roll.
Yep.
That old
Yep.
saying.
Yep.
We just have to do things differently.
Yeah. Yeah. And, and that's one of the things, like when I talk with my clients and you know, the one time I'll never forget, my one client, she was like, and I did this and I said, "Look, just stop for a second. Would you say that to me?" And she's like, "Oh my God, no, Jen, I would never say that." I'm like, then why would you ever, ever, ever say that to yourself? You are an amazing person. And so many times we do. It is the narrative that we play in our head. And that's why it's so important to change the mindset and the narrative, because we've adopted a narrative. And if we're changing who we are, or if we're going to become somebody else, we can't take the things that we once had, or the vision, or the narrative that we have about ourselves, and carry that to that new person. You can't, because it won't fit in that person. You can't put a square peg in a circle, because it's not going to fit. So you have to really look at yourself and say, okay, what's not coming with me in my new version? You have to realize, okay, I can't talk negatively about myself, or at least be aware of it when you start and be like, okay, wait, ooh, like you said, stop and drop the negative, and then I'm going to roll with some gratitude. I'm going to roll with some positivity. I'm going to roll with something new, because that is how you get closer and closer to the vision that you have for yourself. And again, it doesn't all have to happen at once, but I have clients that I have one, she said the other day, Jen, I've been working on it, and I can tell I'm noticing things more. And I said, awareness is the biggest thing. And then you just keep the consistency. And that is how you will start building it. You have to build the foundation.
Yeah, it's the noticing is where you
Mhm.
start, and then you go from
Mhm.
there. And when you mess up, we're all going to do it. We're all going
Yep.
to go,
Sure.
we're going to want that cupcake, or we're going to go and want, chocolate, or, and I'm speaking for myself.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
because you've been off sugar for 6 years, I'm so proud
Yeah.
of you, because
Thank you.
I will get there at some point. I know I will.
Mhm.
I think I have to get these preteens out of my house first, but I don't know.
It does make it more difficult. And, I had when you mentioned cupcakes, I have a great story from a client. We would usually meet on Mondays, and she came in on Monday and she said, Jen, Friday night, I ate 5 cupcakes. And I said, okay. Said, so what happened on Friday? And she was like, so I did this throughout my day. And I had this meeting with my boss, and it wasn't the best meeting. It really stressed me out. So I went home to make cupcakes for my son, and I went to try one, and then I ate 5. And I said, okay, so I want you to step back and realize that this wasn't about willpower. This wasn't about you failing. This wasn't about, we're going to take a look. Okay, this is from stress. So in those stressful moments, and then we laid out what she can do instead. So instead of reaching for that second cupcake, the first one, okay, it's okay.
Yeah. Indulge, because if you
Yeah.
don't, you're going to go overboard.
Well, you're gonna find yourself. It depends what your goals are. Like for me, I
Mm.
didn't want any sugar, so that's why I don't do sugar. But for
Hmm.
somebody who's that's not one of their lines in the sand, and they're
Yeah.
gonna have some. But for her goal that she was trying to lose some weight, was not to have the extra. And so we
Gotcha.
came up with a system
Hmm.
to, okay, after that one, what are we gonna do instead if it's a stressful day?
Hmm.
And what are some of those things that we're going to do? But I wanted her to realize that it wasn't that she was doing something bad, that she'd done
Hmm.
something wrong. I didn't want her beating herself up, that there was a reason that happened. It wasn't
Mm.
because she failed. And that's the biggest key, is that so many of us think, oh God, I failed again. I'm never good at this. And
Yeah.
that goes back to that self-talk. And it's like, okay, we've got to step back, become aware of the why,
Hmm.
and then say, okay, what can we put instead? What kind of things can we do instead?
So
And
the
create
next time
systems.
she becomes stressed, she's going
Yeah.
to enjoy
Do
one of whatever she's going to
Yeah,
treat herself to, and then not do more than that, and
right.
notice.
Right. And just become aware, if she's
Hmm.
like, if I'm reaching for this, what do I want to do instead? Maybe I'm going for a
Hmm.
walk instead. Maybe before I even cook the cupcakes or bake the cupcakes, I'm going
Yeah.
for a walk
Hmm.
to de-stress and do that, instead of going home, baking the cupcakes, and then eating
Hmm.
them. So it's
Yeah.
really realizing what's going to work, and everybody's different. That's why we can't do like a blanket statement, oh, everybody does it this way. It's sustainable for each individual. But saying, you know what, before you do that, if you know you've had a bad, like stressful day, maybe go take a walk and get some of that out before you go and do this, or before this, or maybe you go to read, or maybe go on a bike ride, or whatever works for that individual and that system for them.
Yeah, because there are things you can do to be proactive. You can work on your schedule to make sure you don't have as many meetings back to back. You can
Yep.
work in your workouts on your schedule, like pencil them in. So you're
Yep.
going to the gym in the morning or in the afternoon, or after work before you get home, whatever that looks like. So as long as you have those things built in, but then if you're still thrown a curveball and you're dealing with stress, which we all do, got to have that plan, that game plan for whatever your trigger is going to be. So some people have food triggers, some people have, you know, whatever the trigger is that's
Yeah.
going to keep them from maybe meeting their goal that week. And we just have to notice it and keep trying to be
Yep.
consistent.
Yep. Yep. Absolutely. Absolutely. Couldn't have said it better myself.
Okay. And so, and it's, it's goals, setting a goal, and then keeping track of how that's going. Do you advocate for your clients to, have no more than a certain number of goals, maybe just focus on one goal at a time? Like, what does that look like?
Yeah, so it kind of depends on the person. It depends whether they want to go slower or faster. And again, and that's why it has to, anybody that works with me is kind of tailored to what they want to do. So some people are slower, which is there's nothing wrong with that. That's the pace that they want to go at, and that's totally fine. So sometimes that might be, we're working at, a different level of saying, okay, we're just going to work on this. And usually they'll only work on maybe like one goal a week, or the vision that they have is I just want to try to attain this. Like this is my where I want to get to. And say, okay. And then we'll just keep working on that. Like what are some things that we can do throughout your week that's going to help you get to that? And for the person that might want to go faster, they might say, okay, I'm going to work on, I'm going to keep honing in on my nutrition. It's pretty good, but I want to tweak it a little bit more. And then I also want to work on I have my exercise program pretty down, but I need to work on my stress. Like I need to work on my stress management. So, or my sleep. I need to make sure my sleep routine, I'm really, nailing that in and making sure my morning routine looks good too. So they'll have more on their plate typically, but it depends on the person and how they best function going forward, trying to attain the vision that they have for themselves.
And that makes sense. It sounds like that you are tailoring
Yeah.
the protocols for your clients one on one based on what they need.
Yeah.
And so, could you just explain a little bit about what you do offer to clients if anybody wants to learn more about how to work with you?
Yeah, yeah, I'd be happy to do that. So they can just sign up for like a one-on-one coaching sessions, and that again, I work with people on. Most people come to me for weight loss for sure. That's probably the biggest thing that people come to me for. But I also help them with their sleep, with their exercise. I'm also a certified personal trainer, so I can help them create some programs or plans for them, or even just tweak things that they have. Saying, Jen, I'm not sure. Sleep, stress management, even time management. So I've helped people work on their routines, help on like mapping out what their calendars can look like and that kind of stuff, because sometimes it's helpful to have somebody that's non-biased that can look at that for you. So I can do those one-on-one, and I also do some group coaching as well. I've rolled out some signature programs, which I'm really excited about. My first one that I've rolled out is called Reset and Rise. It's really like a weight transformation program, but it really looks at mindset and looking at building on all of those pillars of our health, but it brings in genetics as well. So 90% of what we do every day impacts our health, while 10% is genetics. And so I brought in the genetic component to help see how their bodies respond to different things as we're working on their nutrition, their sleep, their exercise, and stress. And that's a 12-week program. And then I'm also going to be rolling out a microbiome with cognitive function and a longevity signature program as well. And if I also do corporate wellness too. So I have different things that I do with corporate wellness and do like one-on-one coaching there, as well as like seminars and like that kind of stuff. But work with both men and women. So it's always an adventure seeing how people have success. Some people will go the slower route and there's nothing wrong with that. And you can see how they're building that consistency every day. And then there are others that go really fast. And it's just, that's the best part of my job is to see them reach their vision for themselves. And if people are interested, they can go to compasshealthcoachingllc.com. They can also, if they're not quite sure they want to do anything yet, they can follow me on social media as well at Compass Health Coaching LLC. I'm on Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn. And I'm slowly I'm going slow on my YouTube channel. I'm hoping to build that up then as well.
So, before we close out, do you have any final thoughts that you want to share?
I think the things your diagnosis is never your destiny. It doesn't define who you are. And your genes aren't your destiny either. There are things that you can do with the choices that you make every day are more impactful than either of those two things. And I'm not saying that they're not important, but the choices that you make every day in your health matter more, because when you believe that you can heal, you can. And the mindset is one of the biggest things, the biggest asset that you can have in a health journey. And I would say, if you have ever thought about working on your health, don't wait until you get sick, because it's a little bit harder. Because if you think about rungs of a ladder, you're up here, but then you get knocked down a few pegs when you're sick, and then you have to go up even more pegs to get to where you want to go. So before you get there, try to work on some things, and it doesn't have to be, big pushes. It can be the smallest of details, and just say, you know what, I'm going to work on my snacks. I don't want to snack on a candy bar anymore. I'm going to do an apple with a piece of cheese or something along those lines. But it doesn't have to be the biggest gesture in the world. It can be small too, and go slow.
Thank you for your time. And I think, this conversation is just a gentle reminder that we can all get back on whatever plan that we've started, even if we set something back in January
Mhm.
and we've fallen away from that in some respects. It's okay. We can always start again. And that's the whole point of this podcast, is to go slow, to go fast. So thank you for your
Yep.
time.
Oh, thank you so much for having me today, Kendra. It's been wonderful. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. That's it for today's episode of the Go Slow to Go Fast Lifestyle Podcast. I hope that this gentle conversation about health reminds you that healing isn't always about finding the next quick fix. It's about listening to our body, honoring our journey, and trusting that small, intentional steps can lead to extraordinary transformation, whether you're just beginning your health journey or you're well on your way. If someone came to mind while you were listening to this show, I hope that you'll consider sharing this episode with them and everybody else that you know who could use a little encouragement that can become that spark to get you back into whatever routine you abandoned, or thinking of something else that can help you move forward and meet your goals. So if you're enjoying this podcast, I'd be so grateful if you'd consider leaving a review on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you listen, because your review can help more people discover the podcast, and it can also allow us to continue bringing you those conversations and stories that inspire healthier, slower, and more intentional living. And you could just say, keep going slow, or go slow to go fast. Until next time, remember, the light in me honors the light in you. And as you head into the rest of your week, let your light shine through. Go slow to go fast. And as always, thanks for listening.